A letter from my past that changed everything. Before we begin the story, make sure to subscribe to our channel and never miss more incredible stories every day. The postmark read 2008, the same year my father died, and my name was printed in his handwriting. In 2026, I was a mail carrier in a mid-sized U.S. city, the guy people barely notice until something goes missing. I sorted other people's lives into neat little trays, then walked them to their doors. It was honest work, and it made you a professional observer. That morning, the station manager rolled out a dented metal tub we dug out from behind old lockers during renovations. It was full of dusty, accountable mail that was never scanned into our modern system, green cards, certified slips, an era when everything was paper and stamps. We were supposed to log it, notify supervisors, send anything unclaimable to the dead mail office. I flipped through the stack and froze. Registered mail. My childhood address. And my name, Michael S. Harrison. Under it, my dad's looping cursive in the return section. The envelope looked like it had been sleeping in the dark for 18 years, waiting for my hands. If anyone at USPS thought I was messing with found mail, I could lose my job. If my mother saw this, she'd call it unhealthy and try to lock it away like she locked away everything else after Dad's funeral. Because when my father died, my family didn't fall apart in a dramatic way. They just reorganized. Carl stepped into every room like he belonged there. My mom, Sandra, learned to smile through questions. And I became the extra chair at the table, the one you can move to the garage without anyone noticing. I stood in the sorting aisle with an envelope that shouldn't exist, feeling my heart thump against my scanner. The flap was sealed, but the paper was thin enough to show the ghost of something inside, something stiff and metallic. Rosa, my oldest friend, always said truth doesn't announce itself with fireworks. It shows up as paperwork nobody wants you to read. I signed the log like I was supposed to, then slid the envelope into my satchel. Outside, the winter air bit my cheeks, and I swore I could smell Dad's aftershave for half a second, cedar and soap and the lie of safety. I told myself I'd open it at home, alone, where no one could watch my face change. When I finally open it, one line knocks the breath out of me. Dad used to bring home leftover donuts from his office and act like it was a royal favor. He wore suits even on Saturdays. When I was little, I thought that meant he was untouchable. Kyle loved that version of him. Kyle copied the swagger, the laugh that took up space. I copied the quiet parts. Dad reading the paper at the kitchen table, humming like he was trying to keep a secret calm. Then 2008 happened. One day we were arguing about whether I could quit baseball, and the next day strangers were carrying a body bag down our driveway while the neighbors watched from behind blinds. Sandra didn't crumble. She went efficient. "We don't talk about this with outsiders," she kept saying, like grief was a leak you could patch. The funeral was casseroles and people touching my shoulder like I was furniture. Kyle stood beside Mom like a co-executive. He handled the guest list, the flowers, the paperwork. When I asked what paperwork, he smiled. "Adult stuff, Mike," he said. "Focus on school." Afterward, Dad's office friends stopped calling. The house got quieter, then cleaner, then different. Sandra repainted the living room and boxed up anything that looked like Dad. One night his watch vanished from the kitchen drawer. "Where is it?" I asked. She kept folding towels. Kyle took care of it. Kyle took care of everything. Bills, phone calls, the way teachers suddenly treated me like a problem kid. By senior year, I was angry all the time. I missed assignments. I stayed out late. I drank too much once, and a photo of me behind a fence made its way to Sandra. She held it up like a court exhibit. "You're embarrassing us," she said. "Do you want to be the reason this family collapses?" Kyle leaned on the counter, calm as a banker. "We'll get you help," he said, already choosing what that meant. So I became the family story. Michael's bad period, Michael's issues, Michael who can't be trusted with anything important. When I moved into my own tiny apartment, it felt less like independence and more like being quietly removed. And now, 18 years after Dad's funeral, a letter from that year rode home in my satchel like a loaded question. At my kitchen table, I realized someone worked hard to keep me small. I waited until my route was done, my uniform was off, and my blinds were closed before I touched the envelope again. The paper felt too smooth for something that old, like it had been protected on purpose. Registered mail had its own smell, glue, ink, and a faint metallic bite from the staple holding the green return card. On the back, in a tidy block of handwriting, was Dad's return address. Under it, a registry number written in fountain pen. No love, no joke, none of his usual softening. I should have turned it over to a supervisor and let the system swallow it. Instead, I sat at my wobbly kitchen table and slid a butter knife under the flap, careful like it might explode. Inside was a folded letter and, taped to the bottom, a small brass key wrapped in wax paper. The key had SDB 214 scratched into it with something sharp. A second item, a thin strip of paper with a single word, juniper. My hands shook so hard I smudged the old ink when I unfolded the letter. The first line was dated July 2nd, 2008. Michael, if this ever reaches you, it means I didn't get to fix this myself. My throat closed. Dad didn't write like that. He wrote like there was always time. I forced myself to keep reading, but the next sentence snagged on my ribs. Don't let Sandra tell you I got sick. Don't let Kyle tell you it was an accident. I reread it 3 times, waiting for my brain to soften the words. It didn't. Then the letter did something that made my skin prickle. It stopped. The paragraph ended mid-thought, and the rest of the page was blank except for a line at the bottom. First, go to the bank on Willow Street. Ask for box 214. Use the word juniper. It felt like Dad was rationing the truth, making me earn it in steps, like he knew I'd panic and quit if he dumped it all on me at once. I stared at the key, then at the empty space where more words should be, and I understood why. If this was real, it wasn't just a family secret. It was something someone had kept buried for 18 years. I grabbed my phone to call Rosa, then hesitated, because the last time I brought up Dad, Sandra cried until I apologized. I didn't want to apologize anymore. Then I noticed the green card was signed by someone who wasn't me. I drove to Sandra's house before work, the letter tucked in a folder like contraband. Her neighborhood was all identical lawns and judgment. The house used to be ours. Now it looked renovated into someone else's life. The front door lock was new. I rang. Sandra opened it halfway. Her smile arrived a second late. Michael, is something wrong? I held up the envelope. Did you ever see this? The color drained from her face. Where did you get that? It showed up at my station, I said. Registered. Postmarked 2008. Her hand moved like she meant to snatch it. Then she caught herself. Give it to me. No, I said. Did Dad write to me? Sandra's eyes flicked down the street, checking for neighbors. Then she lowered her voice into that syrupy concern she used when she wanted control. Your father wasn't well at the end, she said. He wrote things. Please don't do this to yourself. Don't do what? I asked. Read mail addressed to me? My phone buzzed. Kyle's name lit the screen. He never called this early. I answered. Yeah. Kyle's voice was bright, rehearsed. Hey, little brother. Mom said you might stop by. Dinner tonight? Just us. Family reset. I stared at Sandra. She didn't deny it. She watched me like a teacher watching a kid with scissors. Since when do you miss me? I asked. Kyle chuckled. Since I've always looked out for you. When I hung up, Sandra stepped closer. If you take that letter to a bank, people will ask questions, she said. Do you want strangers digging into your father's death? What's in box 214? I asked, testing her. Her face froze for half a heartbeat. I don't know what you're talking about. I walked past her into the hallway, needing proof my memories weren't crazy. The file cabinet Dad kept by the coat closet was gone. In its place was a framed photo of Sandra and Kyle. Just them, smiling like a 2-person family. I pulled down the attic ladder. Under the insulation where Dad kept his metal lockbox, there was only a clean rectangle of dust. Sandra's voice rose behind me. Michael, stop. I turned, and in her eyes I finally saw the truth. She wasn't worried about my grief. She was worried about my access. On the drive back, Kyle texted, bring the letter to dinner. Kyle picked a highway diner with laminated menus and coffee that tastes like burned patience. He showed up in a fitted jacket, hair perfect, like we were meeting to celebrate, not fight. Sandra arrived and slid into the booth beside him, not across from him. That tiny choice felt like a verdict. Kyle tapped my folder. So, you found a ghost. It's registered mail, I said. It's real. Sandra sighed. Michael, why are you doing this? We worked so hard to move forward. Move forward from what? I asked. Dad says you lied. Kyle's smile tightened. Dad said a lot at the end. Paranoia. You remember how he got. I remember being told not to ask questions, I said. Sandra reached for my hand like I was a child. I pulled back. Honey, you were struggling back then. You don't have the best memory. There it was, my bad period, their favorite eraser. Kyle leaned in. If you start poking around, you embarrass Mom. You embarrass yourself. And you risk your job. He nodded at my satchel. You want to lose benefits over an old envelope? It tells me to go to a bank, I said. Sandra's eyes flashed. Banks don't keep boxes for 18 years. This is a scam. It has Dad's handwriting, I said. Kyle shrugged. Handwriting can be faked. Mail gets lost. Dates get messed up. You're building a conspiracy because you're bored. I hated that a part of me wanted to believe him, because believing him meant I could go back to being the quiet extra chair. Rosa had told me to text if I met them. I did, under the table. She called 5 minutes later. I stepped outside into the cold. Tell me you didn't hand it over, she said. I didn't. Good, she said. Then verify. Don't argue. Verify. Probate file, deed history, bank access logs. Facts, Michael. Inside, Kyle laughed too loudly at something Sandra said. They looked relaxed, like they'd already won. I walked back in and set the envelope on the table. I'm going to the courthouse tomorrow, I said. Sandra's smile cracked. If you do this, you're tearing this family apart. Kyle's voice went colder. And if you keep pushing, he said, you'll lose more than you think. As I left, Sandra whispered, we saved you, and you'll repay us? The county records office smelled like old carpet and impatience. I took a number, sat under a flickering TV, and reminded myself I wasn't there to prove a feeling. I was there to read what's written. When my number flashed, I asked for the probate file from 2008. 08, PR 4412. The clerk slid a gray folder across the counter like it weighed nothing. First page, Estate of Daniel Harrison. Dad's name in type, cold and official. Executor, Kyle Harrison. I flipped through inventory lists, creditor notices, signatures. The estate was closed fast. Petition filed July 28, 2008. Final accounting approved October 3, 2008. 3 months to settle a man's life. There was a life insurance line item, $380,000. Marked, distributed per beneficiary designation. I scanned for my name. It wasn't there. I found a copy of the beneficiary form, dated June 18, 2008, 2 weeks before Dad's letter. Primary beneficiary, Kyle Harrison. Contingent, Sandra Harrison. The signature looked like Dad's, if you squinted and wanted it to be. The D started wrong. The pressure too even, like someone traced it. Then I saw the notary stamp and checked the notary's commission in the public database. Commission issued, July 22, 2008. 4 days after Dad died. I pulled the next document. A quitclaim deed transferring Dad's small rental property to Sandra, dated September 2009. Signatures, Sandra and Kyle. No mention of the trust Dad once talked about at the kitchen table. The one he said was, for you boys. No trust paperwork. No schedule of assets. Just a clean, neat story. Dad died. Kyle handled it. Sandra moved on. I walked out to the parking lot with copies in my hand and called Rosa. Tell me I'm reading this wrong, I said. Rosa went quiet. Michael, she said, careful. That notary date is impossible. My stomach turned as the pieces tried to click together. If the beneficiary form was forged, then everything after it was built on a lie. And if someone forged it, they didn't just steal money. They rewrote my father. That night, I flipped the letter over and found a second seam. Willow Street Bank still had the same brass doors I remembered from childhood. Back then, the lobby felt like a church. Hushed voices, polished wood, money treated like religion. Now I stood at the counter in my postal jacket, clutching an 18-year-old key and a strip of paper. I'm here about box 214, I said. Juniper. The teller blinked, then disappeared. A minute later, a woman with a name tag, branch manager, Elaine, motioned me into an office. Elaine closed the door. Juniper is an internal note, she said. Where did you hear it? In a letter from my father, I said. Dated 2008. Her eyes narrowed. Daniel Harrison? I nodded. She opened a binder. Box 214 was rented June 10, 2008, she said. Annual fee $85. Paid in cash. Can I open it? I asked. Not unless you're authorized. She slid a photocopy across the desk. Signature card, Dad's name on top. Authorized access, Sandra Harrison and Kyle Harrison. A third line was crossed out in ink so thick it tore the paper. Elaine tapped the blacked-out line. We don't void names without a written request. Show me, I said, my voice flat. She hesitated, then pulled a thin packet. The request was dated August 5, 2008. Signed by Sandra. Reason: Michael is unstable. Remove access. My stomach dropped. Unstable. Elaine flipped to the access log instead of answering. Box accessed August 12, 2008 by Kyle. Box accessed August 13, 2008 by Sandra. Then nothing until March 2009, when Kyle closed it. So they emptied it, I whispered. Elaine didn't argue. You can request certified copies, she said quietly. But once you do, they'll know you're looking. I drove home with the papers on my passenger seat like they were a weapon. At my kitchen table, I pulled Dad's letter back out. The blank space stared at me, daring me to quit. I ran my finger along the edge and felt it. Another layer, another fold I'd missed. Dad hadn't just written a message. He'd built a map. Inside the hidden fold, 3 words appear that changed my next step. The hidden fold was like a pocket sewn into paper. I eased it open and found a second sheet. Thinner, almost translucent, like Dad was afraid of leaving a thick trail. 3 words, same careful ink. Check the deed. The next day, Rosa met me at the county office because she didn't trust me to spiral alone. At the records terminal, I pulled the deed history for Dad's rental duplex on Maple Avenue, his retirement anchor. The thing he said would keep us from begging anyone. The chain of title looked normal until it didn't. Owner: Daniel Harrison. Then, September 2009, quitclaim deed to Sandra Harrison. But there was another transfer, March 2010, from Sandra to an LLC I'd never heard of, Klein Horizon Holdings, LLC. Klein, Rosa said, tapping the screen. That's Kyle's middle name. My mouth went dry. Yeah. We pulled the LLC filing. Registered agent, Kyle. Business address, the same office park he bragged about last Christmas like it was proof he built something. It wasn't just money. It was property, equity, a safety net. And the life insurance suddenly fit into the picture in the ugliest way. $380,000 didn't vanish into bills. It turned into renovations, into Kyle's business seed money, into Sandra's new windows and granite counters, and the version of our family where Dad's death was a tragic inconvenience they mastered. Rosa leaned close. Okay, she said. If they redirected the duplex, what else could they redirect? Dad always talked about a trust. Not yacht money. Just something simple so the court wouldn't chew up our lives. If that trust existed and wasn't in the probate file, it meant it was either hidden or stolen. And if it was stolen, it wasn't an accident. It was a choice to keep me out. When I got back to my car, my phone lit with a voicemail from Sandra. Her voice was syrupy. Michael, please call me. This is getting public. Public? I hadn't told anyone except Rosa and a courthouse clerk. So how did she know? Before I can call back, Kyle sends a photo of my courthouse paperwork. Kyle's text was a photo, cropped tight. My name at the top of the deed history printout, today's date on the corner. Under it he typed, "Stop." Rosa read it over my shoulder. "He's watching you," she said. "Which means you're close." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing Sandra's line, "You don't have the best memory," and seeing the notary date that made no sense. I studied Dad's letter like it was evidence. In the bottom corner of the second sheet, there was a faint perforation. I tore along it carefully. A third slice slid free. "You're going to wonder why I'm telling you this instead of Kyle," it began. "It's because Kyle has already chosen Sandra over truth, and Sandra has already chosen control over you." My throat tightened. Dad wasn't just warning me about money. He was warning me about who my family was. The next paragraph made my skin go cold. "Your bad period didn't start because you were weak," Dad wrote. "It started the week after the funeral, when Kyle told you the pills were for sleep. He needed you foggy. I remembered that week. How Kyle handed me a bottle from his car and said Mom couldn't handle me spiraling. I remembered sleeping 12 hours at a time, forgetting conversations, waking up with shame and no explanation. I had blamed myself for years." Dad's next line hit like a slap. "If they ever call you unstable again, ask yourself who benefits." Rosa read it, jaw tight. "That's not nothing," she said. "That's a pattern." The third slice ended with another instruction. "Go to my grave. Look under the left edge of the stone. Take what's there to an attorney." My dad hid something at the cemetery? I whispered. Rosa grabbed her keys. We go early, she said, before Kyle decides to beat us there. On my drive home, Sandra texted again. Please, Michael. He didn't love you the way you think. My chest burned. Because if Dad didn't love me, why would he write this? And if he did, what exactly did he die trying to protect? At dawn, a fresh smear of dirt stains my father's headstone. Rosa and I reached the cemetery just after sunrise. The winter grass snapped under our shoes. Dad's headstone sat near a maple tree, the letters still sharp enough to make my throat tighten. A smear of fresh dirt stained the left edge. I knelt and slid my fingers under the stone. My nails hit plastic. I pulled out a small tube, like the kind you'd use to keep papers dry, and my heartbeat went loud in my ears. Then gravel crunched behind us. Kyle was walking toward us, fast, hands up like he was calming an animal. Mike, he said, what are you doing? Rosa stood. How did you know we were here? Kyle ignored her and focused on me. Mom is freaking out. You're dragging Dad up for nothing. It's not nothing, I said, and the tube shook in my hand. Kyle took a step closer. Give me that. No. His face hardened, then smoothed into a fake smile. Okay, let's be practical. He pulled out an envelope of cash. Vic, take it. I'll set you up monthly. You get stability, Mom gets peace, and we stop the circus. For one awful second, my brain tried to call it mercy. Money. Quiet. No more fighting. Then Kyle leaned close and whispered, and if you don't, I tell your supervisors you tampered with found registered mail. You want to lose your job over Dad's paranoia? Sandra's car rolled into the lot. She stepped out with tears already loaded. Michael, she cried, please. You were spiraling back then. We protected you. Unstable. Spiraling. The old stamp, ready to press me flat. I stared at the cash. I felt the old roll tugging at me. Apologize, back down, let them keep the story. Rosa touched my elbow and spoke low. Look at his envelope, she said. I blinked. It wasn't a random envelope. It was a county record sleeve, the same one they hand you when you pay for certified copies. Kyle had been to the courthouse after me. He wasn't scared of what I might find. He was controlling what I could prove. I lifted my eyes to him. You don't get to label me unstable anymore, I said. Kyle's smile dropped. Michael, he warned, don't open that here. I twist the cap, and my father's voice starts speaking from inside. The tube held a tiny USB drive taped to a folded note. The note was stained with soil, but Dad's handwriting was unmistakable. If you're hearing this, I'm gone. Don't play their game in private. Bring evidence into the light. On the back was one name and a phone number, Attorney Patel. Rosa drove me straight to a downtown office building. Attorney Patel's receptionist took one look at the envelope of documents in my hands and didn't ask small talk questions. Patel was calm in the way people get after seeing hundreds of disasters. She listened while I laid out the timeline. Probate File 08, PR 4412, life insurance $380,000, notary commission issued after death, bank box 214 access removed on August 5, 2008 for unstable, duplex deed transferred to Klein Horizon Holdings, LLC. When I slid the USB across her desk, she didn't even blink. We'll clone it, she said. We'll preserve metadata. And we won't confront anyone until we control the room. What room? I asked. Patel tapped her pen. A room with witnesses, she said. A bank officer. A notary log. And someone who can't later claim you misunderstood. Rosa leaned forward. How do we get them there? Patel looked at me. You invite them to settle. People who think they're in control love settlement meetings. So I texted Kyle. I'm done fighting. Patel says we can sign a family agreement and close it. Bring Mom. He responded in under a minute. Finally, tomorrow at 2. Sandra called right after, voice trembling with relief. Thank you, she said. We can fix this, Michael. Fix, to Sandra, always meant Barry. Patel set the appointment at Willow Street Bank, in a conference room off the lobby. Elaine agreed to attend with certified copies of the signature card and the access removal request. Patel also requested the notary's commission record and the probate court's original beneficiary form. The plan was simple. Let Kyle and Sandra walk in thinking they were collecting my silence, then put the facts where everyone could see them. The night before the meeting, Patel's tech emailed me a transcript preview from the USB. The first line on the audio wasn't my father. It was Kyle. Patel looks up and says, he admits it. Twice. in his own words. The bank conference room was glass-walled and bright, like it was designed to make lying uncomfortable. Elaine sat with certified copies. Attorney Patel sat beside me. Rosa took the chair behind me like steady pressure. Kyle arrived first, relaxed. Sandra followed, clutching her purse like a shield. Kyle glanced at Patel. "So this is your lawyer." Patel didn't blink. "Before anyone signs anything, we review records." Elaine slid the signature card copy across the table. "Safe deposit box 214, she said. "Authorized users: Daniel Harrison, Sandra Harrison, Kyle Harrison." A third name was added, then voided. Kyle shrugged. Dad was confused. Elaine placed the void request down. Sandra's signature. Date: August 5th, 2008. Reason: Michael is unstable. Remove access. Sandra's eyes flicked to it, then away. Patel slid a second document over. "Notary commission for the stamp used on your father's beneficiary change," she said. "Commission issued July 22nd, 2008, after Daniel Harrison died." Kyle's smile twitched. "That's a clerical thing." Patel clicked a remote. The TV lit up with an audio waveform. "We'll play a preserved file dated August 7th, 2008, she said. "Recovered and cloned with metadata intact." Kyle's chair scraped. "What is that?" The audio played, tinny but clear. "Kyle, Mom, I can do the signature. We need the insurance to hit fast." "Sandra, then do it. We can't wait for probate. If Michael gets a say, he'll ruin everything." "Kyle, he won't. We'll call him unstable. People already think it." The room went silent. Sandra's lips parted. "That's not." Patel held up a hand. "It is," she said. "And it's preserved." Kyle's eyes locked on me, furious. "You recorded us?" "I didn't," I said, voice shaking. "Dad did." Then I remembered the last seam in Dad's letter, the one I'd saved because it felt like a final match. Patel nodded once. I tore it open and read aloud. "If you're hearing Kyle admit it, ask him why he thinks he can steal a son's grief." Kyle's face went raw. "Because you were useless," he snapped, and the mask finally fell. "And because Mom needed the money," he added, too loud, too late. Elaine quietly presses a button, and security walks into the room. Security didn't grab anyone. They just stood there, a reminder this wasn't a family argument anymore. Elaine spoke quietly. "Per bank policy, this meeting is documented," she said. "We're escalating to fraud." Sandra looked like she might faint. Kyle looked like he wanted to break something. Patel gathered the papers into neat stacks. "Next step," she said. "We petition to reopen the estate based on fraud. We notify the insurer. We challenge the deed transfer and the LLC." Kyle scoffed, but his voice shook. "You're going to ruin Mom." Sandra turned on me, eyes bright with rage. "After everything we did for you," she hissed. "You always had to be difficult." Rosa snapped, sharp. "You stole from him and called it protection." Sandra's face cracked. "I didn't know what else to do," she whispered. "The credit cards were maxed. The house, it was going to be taken. Kyle said he could fix it." Kyle whipped toward her. "Stop talking." Patel wrote anyway. Within 48 hours, the first consequences hit. The insurer sent a letter acknowledging a fraud claim on the $380,000 policy. The county clerk accepted Patel's petition to review 08 PR 4412. Willow Street Bank froze anything tied to the safe deposit access request pending investigation. Kyle called from a block number, voice low and venomous. "You think you're righteous?" he said. "You're a mailman. You don't get to judge what adults do to survive." Then the price came for me. A USPS postal inspector asked to speak with me about found accountable mail procedures. My stomach dropped. Kyle hadn't even waited. I sat in a back office at the station, answering questions about logs and chain of custody, while my supervisor watched like I was a stranger. At home, I replayed Dad's audio until my grief felt raw again. Part of me still wanted Sandra to call and say it was all a misunderstanding. Instead, she left a voicemail that sounded like a prayer and a threat. "If Kyle goes down," she sobbed, "we all go down." For the first time, I realized she might be right. Because my name was on that letter, too. The next morning, my supervisor says, "The inspector wants you downtown today." Downtown was worse than I imagined. The postal inspector wasn't cruel, just thorough. He wanted the timeline, when the tub was found, who witnessed it, where the letter went, what I did next. I told the truth: log entry, supervisor initials, and that I opened it off the clock at home because it was addressed to me. I expected punishment. Instead, he nodded and slid a form across the table. Next time, document everything before it gets personal, he said. Sign, and you're done. I walked out shaking, but employed. Patel moved faster than my nerves could keep up with. She requested notary logs, subpoenaed the insurer's original beneficiary form, and explained each step in plain language. Fraud claims trigger review. Probate can be reopened. Deeds can be challenged if signatures are forged. Kyle didn't handle adult stuff. Well, when adults showed up, his tone shifted from threats to bargains within a week. Tell Patel we can settle. I'll transfer the duplex back, he texted. Sandra appeared at my apartment with red eyes and a casserole like it was 2008 again. I did terrible things, she said, but I'm still your mother. I started therapy because Rosa said, you can't build a new life on top of the old lie. The therapist didn't demand forgiveness. She demanded accuracy. Name what happened without softening it. Manipulation, scapegoating, theft, gaslighting. Patel drafted boundaries in writing like they were railings on a cliff. All communication through email or attorney. No private family talks. Any transfer documented and recorded. Any support voluntary, time-limited, and conditional on honesty. When Sandra begged to just talk like we used to, I said, we never talked. You talked at me. She cried. I didn't fix it for her. I agreed to one thing. If she cooperated fully, I wouldn't push for her criminal prosecution. Kyle was different. His choices were deliberate, and Patel said consequences weren't mine to hand-wave away. Some nights I still wanted to trade truth for quiet. Then I'd think of Dad hiding proof in cold dirt for 18 years, trusting I'd be brave. And I'd keep the boundary. 2 months later, Patel calls and says, Kyle's attorney wants a meeting, urgent. The urgent meeting wasn't a movie scene. It was a conference call with 2 attorneys and a calendar invite. Kyle didn't show his face. His lawyer did the talking. Patel laid out the outcome in plain terms. The duplex deed would be transferred back and recorded properly. The insurer would reevaluate the beneficiary change under fraud review. The probate court would reopen 08 PR 4412 long enough to correct distributions. Kyle would repay part of the insurance proceeds plus fees. In return, we'd settle civil claims and keep my mother out of the worst of it, if she stayed cooperative. Kyle wanted closure. What he meant was containment. I didn't get a triumphant moment where everyone clapped. I got paperwork. I got signatures that matched. I got a judge's order that said, in boring legal language, that the story I'd been living wasn't the whole story. The revenge, if you can call it that, was watching Kyle's favorite weapon, Michael is unstable, turn into a liability on the record. The boundary was permanent. No private meetings, no rewriting my past for their comfort. Sandra and I spoke once a week for a while, short calls with long silences. Sometimes she apologized. Sometimes she tried to bargain for the old version of me. I kept saying the same thing. Truth first. Then we'll see. On my route, I started noticing how many doors hide quiet wars. One morning, I delivered a birthday card to a kid who ran to the door like Christmas. His mom mouthed, "Thank you." And for once I felt something simple. I mattered. If your family calls you too sensitive, unstable, difficult, here's the practical thing I wish I'd known in 2008. Paper beats gaslight. Request the probate file. Pull deed history. Check notary commissions. Ask for certified copies. Don't argue with a story, verify it. And if you find proof, don't confront them alone in a kitchen. Bring witnesses. Bring daylight. I kept Dad's letter in a fireproof pouch, not because I was scared of losing it, but because I finally respected what it took for him to leave it.